Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the third and final workshop in our change management workshop program. I hope that you've found the previous two engaging and that it helps you think with all the things that you do on a Padlet and your learning outcomes, and you've been able to take some of the things you've already learned away and implement them into your work, which would be great. For the final time on these workshops, I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the alumni engagement managers here, and any sort of issues, questions, conversations, I'm the person to ask to in the chat if you need any help. And with that, I'm very happy to hand over to Lucy for our third workshop.
Well, welcome back to session 3. Thank you very much for returning for a third time for our Wednesday lunchtime sessions. I really appreciate you making space in your busy schedules to come along. So this time we're going to be looking at your career and how you make sense of what we've discussed in the first and second sessions. So just by way of a reminder and a quick link, last time we were looking at organizational responses to change, and we looked at effectual reasoning, the importance of continuous change, and VUCA disaggregating characteristics of change so that they felt more manageable and were more easily addressed through strategic action planning. So today we are going to be helping you connect this idea of change and value creation to your own personal values. So the idea of connecting value and values in the context of value creation for yourself and for others, which are key themes of our MBA program. We're going to be looking at how this, or how you might make sense of this in terms of real world career planning. And that could also be retirement planning. So any sort of big transition you're making in the world of work or from the world of work will be useful to you, hopefully today, and end up with an action plan or some intentions, clarity in your priorities, perhaps, that reflects not only your current goals, but the potential for future leadership development, maybe on a course like our full-time MBA program. So I have a less complicated icebreaker this week than I did last week. So if you could just tell me, when you were little and people said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" What did you say? So just type that in the chat. Wow, I didn't even know marine biologists existed. Fantastic. Pokemon trainer. Training the actual Pokemon. Gynecologist. Wow, you're so sophisticated. My Lord. An astronaut. Excellent, Carmen. Like the picture. Bob the Builder. I wanted to be Bob the Builder. Okay. A vet, a teacher, cricketer. Fantastic. Costume designer, bartender on a tropical island. Wow. A lawyer and a firefighter. Okay. Dual career. Nuclear and a penguin. I wanted to be either a brain surgeon or a pop star. And then sometimes I wanted to be a newsreader. A fashion designer, absolutely. So it's interesting, isn't it, when we think back to that then and how things have turned out, and maybe reflect on what it was about that being a pianist or a costume designer that appealed to us, and how much of that is still evident in what we do today, and whether it's come true, and whether we can make more of it come true than is now, if we still look back fondly at our desires to be a nuclear physicist or a video game tester. So thank you very much for posting those things. Now, what I would like you to do is have a revisit of your personal learning outcomes on the Padlet. So I will switch to the Padlet. And if you could just find your post, so that's Control 8, and then put your name in. and just quickly review your learning outcomes and add a comment to reflect any amendments you've made after reflections from last week or the week before, um, different focus, any amendments, edits that you feel are appropriate now. And Jeremy's put the link in the chat. Thank you. Okay, still the same. More proactive. Be aware of support network. That's fantastic. Yeah, you never have to do it on your own. Nothing changed. Oh, incorporate play. There was a good web podcast that the educational team circulated, Tom, that I'm not sure if you had access to, about play. I love thinking about how we could do that. Liminal space, brilliant. Just reflection, fantastic. Yeah, there's no easy answers, is there? And I didn't think you expected them to be embracing liminality. Absolutely not linear. Very true. Yeah, maybe expose yourself to people who really recognize your true value. And that really means finding the right place to be in the world, isn't it? And not trying to push water uphill. Sometimes we find ourselves doing that. Okay, fantastic. So finding out a little bit more about the theoretical grounding of some of the theories that you've been experiencing in practice. Okay, so an emerging understanding of the concepts. Yeah, lots of reflection. That's really nice, really heartening, because that's what I was hoping for. Great. Okay, thank you very much. So that's there. You've got ongoing access to that Padlet board. So do use it to touch base after today. Maybe, I don't know, put a little diary note in for Wednesday lunchtimes when we're not meeting together anymore, just to check and see how you're doing on that, and make sure that you're doing things to get you in a place where you feel you can really respond as effectively as possible to change. So I'm just going to go back to my slides now. Great. So I'm going to talk to you today about 4 things. And then I'm going to ask you to get into pairs. So we're going to have really tiny breakout rooms today, because I want you to have more time to talk individually. And I'll explain what I want you to do when we get there. So I am going to talk about values, value, and value creation. The Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, the idea of the pedagogy of uncertainty and what that means. So learning to learn, essentially, because the only thing we can be sure of is change. So in terms of preparing ourselves for the future, it's quite difficult to see at any distance what we're going to need to know. So the best thing for us to know is to learn how to learn. And then finally, we're going to look at purposeful transformation, and that's the topic of the paired discussions that I'm going to ask you to engage in. So first of all, values. So I don't know if you've ever given much thought to what your values are, but it's a good idea to ground all of your responses to change with a good level of self-awareness in terms of what you personally regard as important, because it's going to be vital to retaining your motivation, to noticing when your motivation is being diminished and understanding why, and then thinking about what you can do to fix it and recreate an environment that is more motivating to you. So this is one set of values. There's a variety of different ones, and what we're looking for here is a collection of words. And then what we have to do is reflect on those words and think which ones resonate most with us. And then we can start curating our environment around those values. So this is the work of Schwartz, who also has a lovely range of spices that you might find in the supermarket. Don't think it's the same person. And they put these values in a circle deliberately because they felt that these core value types really were sometimes in tension with each other. So you can see that the values that are opposite each other in the circle might be both exist in one person, but be in tension. So if you have a social focus and a personal focus, sometimes you might feel that tension. So there might be a bit of you that wants to spend time reflecting on how you think and feel, and another bit of you that wants to talk to somebody else about it. And you might think, oh, that feels a bit weird, maybe that's wrong. But the message that I wanted to give you by showing this sort of circular layout of values is that there are those tensions. So and that's okay. It's structural. That they are structural motivational conflicts, according to Schwartz, and they by looking at where our values are positioned on this circle, help us maybe understand the tension that we feel sometimes in what we want to do and what motivates us. And if we hear ourselves maybe being inconsistent when we're explaining to other people what makes us happy, then this might be why, because it's perfectly normal and common to have values that are sometimes in conflict with each other. So his work treated this idea of values as not isolated things, but they all work as together in a dynamic system. And you can see how they might be vastly affected by the environment that we're operating in, the people that we with, the stage of life that we're at. So they'll evolve and change and shift depending on context. And also, you'll know very short term that, I don't know, you might be hungry at the moment. So your motivation will be to get some food, so you'll feel that food is really important to you now, but that might, that will always occur just before lunchtime, perhaps. So it's recognizing what's influencing your values at a more maybe temporal level, and then what's reliable, what's really consistent in your own personal values, and thinking about how you can curate your own environment, regardless of all the change that's going on, to recognize what your values are and to move towards environment that help you meet more of your values, and because that is fundamental to feeling like you're living a meaningful life. Criticism of this approach is that when we're presented with a list of words like this, we can reinforce ideas of ourselves that may not be the real idea of ourselves. So it's not to say that we are consciously pretending to be somebody else, but we are all influenced by other people's expectations of us and who we think we ought to be and who we think we are, maybe rather than who we are. So it's really a good idea to have conversations with people that know us and love us and have our best interests at heart around our own personal values, because they might see things in terms of what situations we're motivated and happy in, that we don't even recognize in ourselves. And, they might see us looking stressed and not operating at our best in situations that we hadn't noticed. They could, so it can reinforce self-images of that aren't necessarily authentic, for all sorts of different reasons. Another list, so just to give you a couple of examples, is, and I just wanted to draw your attention to the work of Marty Seligman. So there's the the link on the slides, which I think you'll get. So that it's a site called positivepsychology.com. And what Marty Seligman did, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, he turned psychology, the practice of psychology, on its head. I hope there's not too many psychologists in the room, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas previously they'd been trying to address the root causes of mental health concerns. Whereas Marty thought that it would be interesting to look at what made mentally healthy people healthy. So he came at it from the other perspective. So all the work on that website is looking at the recipe for success, really.